We decided to come to USA because of anti-Semitism. We just didn't see future in Russia for my children.
Growing up, both my mother and father always told me that part of the reason that they immigrated to America was to provide us with more opportunities and that our education came first. That was the most important thing to them.
But at the time, it was completely uprooting them from their positions, from their status quo, and starting completely new, not knowing the language, not knowing the customs and the traditions. And I think out of that, I got some of the values they raised me with, as well as the importance of sacrificing oneself for the sake of family.
Back in my country, I was a pediatrician. It was impossible to become here a pediatrician because it would mean to forget my family. And I just decided to concentrate on my children and their career and career of my husband. Education was most important goal in my husband's and my life.
I remember when I was applying to schools, my father actually really wanted me to go to Berkeley. And I knew that I did not want to go to school so close to home because I was following their example. They traveled to another part of the world to see something new and to have more opportunities. So I wanted to go to school on the East Coast.
When we heard about the Dartmouth, I know that Ivy League school, and it was really old school. It was a little bit scary financially, but in that moment, Michael has a good salary, and we decided just go ahead. It's best for her future. Being here, we had really a happy life, but all of a sudden, it just ended.
I just got off work when I heard the news about my dad. To me, it was a little bit out-of-body experience because he went to a doctor because he was getting slight migraines and he was suffering from bouts of forgetfulness.
And my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer. Usually people diagnosed with glioblastoma live for half a year. I really tried to protect not just Michael, but my children too, because I knew that it's already too much for my daughter who was far away and she was alone with her grief. I couldn't put a lot on my son because he was working hard, and I felt really alone. And I just decided to call to JFCS and cry out for help. Honestly, I was surprised for really fast response. People eager to help me. I remember Gwen said me, case manager, is absolutely amazing person. She said to me, right now relax a little. It will be our responsibility. Take care about a lot of things that you care before. Since then, it was physical, emotional help. It was a team of helpers for me. I just was amazed by these people, especially one who played guitar for my husband. And yes, Michael couldn't speak, but we sang song together.
I think as a family, we never gave up hope. He was always focused on his work and his family up until the last minute.
After his death, without money, we just didn't know what to do.
My father would have been devastated if his illness caused a delay in my education.
And help came from JFCS.
I applied to their scholarship and loan program.
It was grant, it was loan, it was, emotional help too.
What really stood out for me about the organization is that they took the time to really hear my story. And I know they didn't have to do that. They really just could have asked me purely the facts of my financial situation. But what I really appreciated is that I felt that I got help from the organization and also monetary support, which helped me finish my Dartmouth education.
After all that I was through, I was not alone, I was with JFCS. I decided I need to give something back. I need to participate in such hard and needed work that JFCS doing.
Volunteering as one of our senior companions, Olga brings experience from her own personal life as well as her professional life. She was a doctor, she went through her own personal tragedies, so she has a depth of understanding and compassion for all different kinds of people. And she's working with our Canine Corps. It's so wonderful to be able to offer her services to some of our seniors who are homebound. And she is giving back of herself and her love to a community that gave to her.
What helps our family heal every day is knowing how proud my father would be of us continuing to pursue our dreams.
For me, my life is not over. It's continuous because my children have a lot ahead. And Michael, he's not gone for me. He's next to me. We continue to live together. It's not over, not in any way. Because all our life is story about love. Without support of love, we cannot achieve anything. It's just simple. Love is base of life. That's it.
By the early 1970s, there were many Holocaust survivors here in San Francisco. They had spent the last decades rebuilding their lives, having children, going to work, creating an environment in which they could live. It wasn't that the survivors weren't part of our organized Jewish community. It was that they were so busy rebuilding that they didn't have time to be integrated into the community. And the San Francisco leadership didn't know how to embrace them, didn't know how to involve them. Who knew how to deal with the Holocaust?
I always felt that the survivor community was shunned and sort of the Jewish community did not really pay attention to them. There was nothing until 1977. Until that bookstore incident started, there was nothing.
One day, there showed up in San Francisco 6 uniformed Nazis and started a parade around town.
Dear friends, fellow white workers, the forthcoming meeting will be held, hold on to your hat, at our first San Francisco White America bookstore.
These Nazis set up a bookstore in the Sunset District.
Right next to the synagogue.
Right next to the synagogue.
There's a stop sign at 46 in Terraville, so I stopped and looked both ways, and I looked, I saw a swastika, and I go, whoa. So I was there, stopped, and I was just staring at it and going, why is this here?
The survivors saw this bookstore, and the survivors had a very tight network. So the Weisses, the Gelbarts, other families immediately got on the phone and called each other.
The night before Passover in 1977, Holocaust survivor Tobel Weiss was the first to directly confront those operating the Nazi bookstore.
I knocked at the door, he didn't open. Knocked again, he didn't open. Then when he opened, I says, you know, this is the United States. I went through already. You killed all my family. Why did you do that? And he said, it's not enough I killed. I'm going to kill all the Jews. Even they'll make dog food. The dogs will not like it.
It was about 7 o'clock. I drove by the Nazi bookstore, and who did I see? I saw my mom. I saw my mom with a rock.
I grabbed that rock, throw in the window.
My mother picked up the rock, threw it at the front window of the bookstore. The glass broke.
And then my husband kicked the window. And then people start to see what goes on. They came more and more.
We broke into it, we tore it up. There was all kinds of Nazi literature inside the bookstore. And we threw everything out.
A few minutes later, the police came.
Police officers moved the proprietor of the Nazi bookstore to a police car for his own protection.
And that's when the officer came across the street and arrested me.
When I saw they took him in the car with a Nazi, I started to get very, very emotional.
And then I hear my mother yelling in Yiddish, Moishe, Moishe, your son's in the car with a Nazi.
And the only thing what I saw is like Auschwitz, the siren, the chimneys, the smoke. Here I'm in the United States and he is arrested with the Nazis. Remind me when they took away my brothers and sisters.
And everybody went hysterical. And my dad opened up the door of the police car, pulled a Nazi out, started beating him. And the police officer grabbed my father from behind. My father turned around and hit the policeman.
Neo-Nazis responded to the incident by smashing windows at the nearby synagogue. In the days that followed, the neo-Nazi proprietors of the bookstore were evicted, and they fled San Francisco. But the emotions stirred up by the bookstore incident would not dissipate so quickly.
When I saw it in the paper, it tore at me, and I said to my wife, this is awful. I mean, it's coming right back to us again.
There was the night of the broken glass in Germany, where Hitler ordered all the Nazis to go after Jewish stores and smash the windows and rob the stores and burn the merchandise. Apparently, the Weiss family, remembering this, took the opportunity to revenge in their mind the things that had happened to the Jews years before.
Now, the interesting thing was the ripple effect, because it was a vigilante action. They had acted on their own. And there was a shock in the Jewish community. I mean, Jews simply do not do that kind of thing. They don't break a window, they don't burn books, this is terrible. And so the Jewish Community Relations Council, under the leadership of Earl Rabb, called a meeting which took place at Beth Shalom.
People like Earl Rabb and Naomi Lauder said, we have to do something. Finally, a Jewish organization finally is going to care about the Holocaust survivors. It's no longer a secret. It's no longer something under the table.
I called everybody in town that would know a survivor.
There must have been between 125 and 150 people there, all of whom were talking Yiddish to one another.
And they really started yelling at us. Where have you been? We've been here 30 years. No one has come near us. We've done pretty well. And they really had done pretty well. Amazingly so. And the conversation was very rough, but we knew that it was real, and we listened to them.
It was an electric moment. First of all, because the organized community understood that we couldn't just talk, we had to do something. But secondly, because the survivors had finally found their own voice, their own expression.
They said, well, we have to find out how much do people really know. Jewish people know because they had friends or family that had connection to the Holocaust. But what did non-Jewish people on the street of the neighborhood, how did they know? Because the Holocaust was like this in the newspaper.
And the basic thing that we discussed was, what can we do to make people become aware of what the Holocaust was and who we are among them?
And Earl said, what do you want? And they said, we want a Holocaust memorial. We want a Yom HaShoah meeting where the whole community comes together. And we want a Holocaust library and research center. We knew we had to get public land. We knew that we had to get a lot of money to build it. And so we all went to work and we put together a committee. It was 60% survivors. chaired by Rhoda Goldman, who had such feeling for the survivors, and they loved her. And then the subcommittee was to build the memorial, and that was chaired by Rhoda, Sissy Swig, and Bill Lowenberg.
It's not something that you want people to forget, and you want them to remember it in an honorable, constructive, emotional for sure, but really a remembrance that has integrity to it. George Siegel was first asked to be interested, and when he decided that he wanted to submit something, we were very excited.
We believe deeply that it was the only legacy that we can leave this world, the final days of our lives, to make absolutely sure that never again can this happen to humanity.
Holocaust survivor Morris Weiss, who had been arrested during the Nazi bookstore incident and who remained very active in the remembrance initiatives, passed away just days before the groundbreaking for San Francisco's Holocaust Memorial. His wife Toba read the speech he had planned to give for the occasion.
It is a good thing what the survivors have done. It is a good thing what the Jewish community has done and what the people of San Francisco have done. It is a good thing what Mayor Weinstein have done, but it was easy compared to what we must do next. Education brings understanding. And that is my biggest dream, that the young people in America who want and need to learn about the Holocaust will be able to do so by understanding.
The simple flame, the simple stone, the simple flowers really doesn't carry with it the enormity of this act of atrocity. And this sculpture does. A stark reminder that man is really capable of terrible atrocity and of tragic and incalculable inhumanity.
It's really an in-your-face work of art. There is a single figure, the survivor, standing at a barbed wire fence. And behind that figure are figures that are strewn on the ground that are lifeless. It initiated so many opportunities to have discussions. It's a teaching piece.
What it meant in the period of the 1970s, 80s, 90s to have here in San Francisco the people who could not only tell the story, but live the story, and who were able to transmit the story. When we wanted to honor the liberators, the 50th anniversary of liberation, the synagogue was packed with Jews and non-Jews, people who had liberated the camps. It was amazing to see survivors embracing liberators and liberators embracing survivors.
Okay, we're in the meeting. The meeting breaks up, and Earl says, "Max, I want to talk to you." Pulls up a chair and says, "Sit down. I want you to be in charge of starting the library." I said, "Why me?" Earl says, "There isn't anybody here who speaks English. And you're an architect. You have to plan ahead." And I didn't know him. I didn't know who he was. So who are you? He said, "I'm Earl Robb, and I'm in charge of the Jewish Community Relations Council." I said, "But I don't know anything about books." "You learn." "Where do I get the money?" And he calls Lonnie over. He He said, do you know each other? I said, never met the lady, never met him. I want you to work together. And what? So he started telling her, you know everybody socially in town to get money for starting the library.
And I got busy, and I did a pretty good job in fundraising and membership and what have you. And I made it my business to collect books on the Holocaust, no matter what language, period, paragraph.
I said to my late wife that we were going to collect books. And Pat said, listen, why don't we bring all those books here and put them in the basement, and we can then sort them out.
Well, one part of our library consists of Yiska books, which are memorial books. And this is a very rare collection. So many small towns were burned to the ground. There was nothing left, not even the name. And people who had been incarcerated in concentration camps got together after the war and said, we have to do something that the world will not forget our little town.
And of course, as the years went by, the positive was that a massive collection was built. The negative was there was not the support in the community to maintain a freestanding Holocaust library and research center.
To tell you the process is long and painful. I became very involved with the Holocaust Center for many years. In the last 3 years, we were going to give our books to San Francisco State. This made me violently angry. This made my mom violently angry. We were rescued. We were rescued here by Ingrid Tauber. When this place opened, my mom cried.
Each year, through the work of the Holocaust Center, we're able to reach over 20,000 students. Programs that reach these youth are our Day of Learning is really one that's exciting, bringing over 550 students and educators on one day to a conference that connects students from 64 different schools throughout Northern California. Other programs that connect with the youth are Speakers Bureau, which brings together students with the testimony of survivors.
I had to actually get my sense. You could hear the sounds of the victims as they were gassed. And you know that for many, many years. For many, many years, I couldn't hear children cry.
I'll be able to tell my kids or grandkids about my experience with the Holocaust survivors. I even tell my little cousins about it now.
That's why I'm doing this, even though I'm 83 years old. This is how I want to die. Informing young people what happened and to protect you that this will never happen again.
This summer we took 31 students and educators on the Legacy Study Tour through Berlin, Poland, and Israel. This was an opportunity to go beyond the walls of the classroom and look at how Holocaust commemoration and memorialization impact us today. Our group of students was very diverse, and we turned heads wherever we went. People didn't expect that students who don't come from a Jewish background would have an interest in Holocaust history, as our group did.
Look at how much the Holocaust survivors went through. They still made it out alive and still accomplished things that they wanted to accomplish.
Hi everybody, I'm Diane Feinstein. Many of you know me. I was mayor of this great city for many years, and today I'm in Washington, so I can't be with you tonight. The Senate's in session, but I really want to take a moment to say thank you, Jewish Family and Children's Services, on this event. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of more than 75,000 children, families, and seniors in the Bay Area. And thank you so much for this award. I really don't deserve it. You do. For more than 160 years, you have been a vital and positive part of our community. I thank you for your sense of community. I thank you for your help with Holocaust awareness. and the continual effort to see that anti-Semitism is no more. I'm also very honored to be recognized among the distinguished group of advocates. Sissy Swig is a pal, John Rothman, Max Garcia, the wonderful Earl Rabb, Naomi Lauder, the Weiss family, and the late Lonnie Darwin, all of whom I have known and know. So you will always have me as a partner in your efforts to promote tolerance and justice. I thank you for this honor and have a great evening.
Departed, and you know he never showed his face again. That's why your love keeps on lifting higher and higher. All right. Keep my love.